Hello, everyone. We're going to get started here momentarily. We definitely want to say welcome to everyone on this Father's Day to the Endangered series. And so we definitely would like you guys to send us some comments this evening. We're excited. We're excited about to be able to share with you on this Father's Day. I'm happy, I'm elated that my son is going to be standing in with me today. Christopher Joseph Stephenson the second. So happy Father's Day to you, Tanja. We are so happy and thank you for tuning in. And so we want you guys to definitely send us some comments today. I know we've got a few more minutes before we get started. It's been a week. We've got so many awesome comments, people giving us their feedback of the Endangered series. And so, of course, we are elated. We are so happy that we can continue this series. Prayerfully, it's blessing somebody's life. I know that for me and my family, we are blessed to be able to just share this broadcast. And Mavia, we see you. Thank you for tuning in. I see you're watching. It's been a long time. So we thank you for tuning in also. This Endangered series, guys, if you will, send it out to your friends and family. And especially today on Father's Day, we're going to be talking from a father-son perspective. That is one thing that we see oftentimes. There's, whether it's in the Afro-American community or not, but just with fathers and their sons being able to build a bridge that God could be pleased with. Many times that's challenging, but we're all works in progress. We're all works in progress. And so I'm definitely appreciative to each and every person this opportunity. I want to thank my son publicly. I've already, me and him has had a small talk, but not a lot. But like my wife, I'm keeping him in the dark on his interview today. We're going to be interviewing him and getting a perspective of this new generation, if you will. I believe that the next generation, as they take the torch and move forward, being able to see what is going on in our society, even knowing their history is important. But in this present moment, being able to process that, that's important. But I also believe that as elders, as parents, we have to lean in and have a listening ear for them. That helps us process what they are experiencing, what they're dealing with as well. It helps us better undergird them. And so that's why not only on Father's Day, but we're going to be talking about everything that is transpired with the humanity problem, or this virus, I would say, of racism. And so I'm going to be getting his perspective, not only on what it means to be a son and processing Father's Day, but also not only that, processing what it means to go through this era and this time as a young adult. Now, as always in the Endangered series, I start with a story. The story today is set in Jasper, Texas. In 1998, June the 7th, a gentleman stops by the side of the road. He commences to needing a ride home, and three white men pull up in a truck. They pull up in a truck and they offer him, of course, a ride home. And in the process of picking him up, they start to beat him. They start to beat him severely. They spray paint him in the face. They beat him unmercifully. They urinate on him and they defecate on him. Continuing this heinous act, they slit his throat before chaining him by his legs and his feet, before dragging him 3 miles. Now, I'm going to pause right there and let you process that, and I want you to think about where you're sitting right now. Where you are sitting right now, whether in your home, a place of a business, wherever it may be. Think about 3 miles from where you live or where you're sitting. Right now, where I'm sitting in my home, 3 miles to the nearest highway would take me, if I were running, possibly most joggers, they run 9 to 10 minutes. If you're a marathoner, per mile, it would take you 4 to 5. But it would take you approximately jogging 20 to 30 minutes, 3 miles. They commenced to dragging Mr. James Byrd Jr. on June the 7th, dragging his body. Throat is already slit, dragging his body. And something happens at the 1.5 mile mark. Mr. Byrd's body, already bruised, of course, already, I know at this point, racking with pain. His body hits a culvert. A culvert, you know, is a steel or reinforced cement cylinder. His body hits the culvert and his arm and his head is severed from his body. Of course, the assailants, they failed to stop even there. They continued to drive another 1.5 miles. They drive another 1.5 miles, equaling 3 miles, and they dump his remains. Now bear in mind that the investigators found after they dumped his body in front of a predominantly Afro-American church. The assailants, Berry, Brewer, and King, dumped his body in front of a church. Of course, the FBI was brought in at that time, and they found a wrench with Berry's name, or the word Berry, which led them to the assailant, as well as a simple flashlighter with possum written on it, which was King's nickname in prison. 2 of the white supremacists were given death by lethal injection. Other one will not be up for parole until 2038. That was 22 years ago that this happened. 22 years ago, during the investigation, the FBI found 81 pieces of Mr. Berry's body along the 3 mile path. As we sit here today, just this week, within the last few days, we've seen modern day lynchings in Houston, Texas. Imagine at this point in 2020, there's still progress to be made, but we are still haunted by the past as well as the present problems. Now let's talk about that for a moment, because you may say, well, Christopher, where is the progress? Where is the progress that is taking place? Well, I see some progress. We see that officers, just this week, I've seen some images of them stopping and praying. And prayerfully, that prayer is heartfelt as they pray with peaceful protesters. But there still needs to be more progress because the problem still exists. Because U.S. Today reported that a policeman pulled a gun on a 10-year-old boy, 10-year-old black boy, and what the atrocity, the add insult to injury, his chief says he will keep working. I believe that progress and problems cannot coexist until change happens. And I'm going to deal with that here momentarily. We have to promote progress. Why? That's one of the first things I want us to talk about today, is promoting progress. We have to be agents of change. And if we're not agents of change, are we not just as cancerous as the problem? I saw a police officer ready to engage just here in Dallas, Texas, on a peaceful protester, and one of his colleagues, mind you, an Afro-American woman, she steps in. She is a policeman as well. She steps in, seeing her white colleague ready to engage on a peaceful protester in an unacceptable way. She steps in, ushers him off, moves him off of the peaceful protesters. She is promoting progress. She's identifying an unacceptable behavior. We've got to promote progress. Now you may say, well, where is that even in the scriptures? Well, when you read in Galatians, we see in chapter 2, Paul, he basically confronts Peter. There is a debate about the Gentile Christians, those that are coming into the fold, that are leaving their idolistic behavior. And Peter at some point had sat down to eat with them and commune with them. But when his fellow Jewish friends started to move into Jerusalem, Peter retracted from the Gentiles that were turning their life in the right direction. Paul confronts him about that. Paul confronts him. You can take time to read that, starting in Galatians chapter 2, verse 11 through 13. I like that Paul would step up and hold his colleague to a higher accountability. And I believe to promote progress, how do we do it? We must hold our peers accountable. And if we don't, I believe that God will hold us accountable for being silent, for being not active in the progress that I believe that he wants to promote with humanity in this day and time. Now, not to prolong the time, I want to move to my son. And first of all, again, thank him for coming and fellowshipping with us today. But I want to ask you, Christopher, when you think about, before we get into all of the things that's going on with society today, definitely tell us, what does Father's Day mean to you?
I would like to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. And before I say anything, I would like to give thanks to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for even allowing me to wake up this morning and be in front of you all today. Father's Day, what that means to me is an appreciation for somebody that has been there and supported a family, because I feel like there's other father figures that should also be acknowledged on Father's Day, whether that may be a coach, a pastor, somebody of importance that is a male to you. So that's what I think Father's Day means. It's a time that we should celebrate the role of a supportive male figure. That's what I feel like Father's Day means to me.
Great. I'm glad that Christopher mentioned that, because there are so many men that have taken the helm when there hasn't been a father in the home, or hasn't been a father active in a male's life or a daughter's life, a female's life, for men to step up. I have a cousin. I love him and I love all of my family members and friends, but one in particular, Darren, I tell you, he is so active and engaged into so many young people's life. He actually has a scholarship program, Darren Polly, you can look him up in Henderson, Texas. He promotes a scholarship for young people. And what he's doing is he's fathering young boys and young ladies to be able to make an impact on the family and their lives ahead. I think fatherhood and Father's Day represents so much. You have so many stepfathers as well that are stepping in and being an active, present influence, if you will, on individuals' lives that wouldn't have a father or a leader there. Be it as it may, I want to pause also and say Happy Father's Day to my dad, James Stephenson, there in East Texas. I'm always appreciative of my dad being there and being a father to me, showing me some things that I liked, those that I didn't like as well. And I want to say that as a father, sometimes making hard decisions and being able to navigate, how do we do this fatherhood thing? That's okay to be able to say, there's some things that I'm learning. I know as a father, I'm learning how to do. Even here at 48 years old, I'm still learning. And so I think that being a father means so much, and having to guide this next generation. We are blessed to be fathers, and I'm praying that as we go further in today and in this conversation, that we bring some enlightenment to men as it relates to fatherhood. But not only that, son, tell me, since this Endangered series, since we launched that, and Mr. Floyd's death and you processing that, as a young person, when you first saw the images or watched the video, how did it make you feel, or how does it make you feel even now as you process that?
I'm not gonna lie. I felt numb to it in a sense, because I know for us as African Americans, things like that and police brutality, this is not the first instant. This has just been an instant that's been recorded.
Exactly.
And I feel like for me, just realizing, when you're a young kid, I feel like every colored person realizes this at some age that, that we have a target on our back. And whether you deal with that in a positive or negative way is your choosing. But I feel like just seeing that image I'm just so numb to it, because it's just so sickening. And, for, even his daughter, this will be her first Father's Day without her father. And we just been going through this and different atrocities since my grandfather was my age, and I'm just numb to it, and it's sickening, to be honest.
When you think about it, and that's a great point, that this is the first Father's Day that his daughter will have without her dad. And I think that that's important to mention, and I think that's a great point. And the reason being is, when we are having to encounter these actions, and whether it is the police or anyone that is inflicting brutality on someone, you have to know that that person is loved by somebody. You're not just taking a life, you're taking somebody's father, you're taking somebody's mother, you're taking somebody's heart, because you're special to somebody. That person that is inflicting all of the pain, they don't realize that you or that individual is loved. That could have possibly been her hero, her Superman. And here, for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, somebody's hero, somebody's heart has been torn out, has been killed. But Mr. Floyd was somebody's dad. Christopher, a couple of weeks ago, I shared here on the Endangered series, I asked for men to share their one word, so to speak. One word. There were many men, as I mentioned last week, that shared the one word segment. And many of them said peace or suspicious. One that I haven't really talked about, one said setback. And now that we're talking about progress versus our present problem, I think that word is prevalent. Mr. G, if you will, he said, the word that I express or comes to mind is setback. This event, he was specifically talking about the Floyd event. He says, this event has set us back 50 to 60 years. It is directly contradictory to the progress that I think we should have in society. And so that word, it even resonates today that we are being set back day by day. When you have lynchings, even today in modern day life, setback, it is profound. But your word, son, I remember asking you, and it shook me to my core, and I mentioned it last week. Your word was treachery.
Yes, it was.
Tell me a little bit about how you processed that, or how did you even derive at the word treachery?
Well, in my personal opinion, I feel like it is so much that is deeply rooted that not a lot of people are talking about. There's a lot of things, even outside of the police and that field, there's so many, as that man said, setbacks that we have. So I feel like when you are a colored person, and I can only speak on a male's perspective, I know you have told me growing up, you have to be on your P's and Q's always because they will use anything against you or to discredit you. Isn't that a form of treachery? You have to walk a certain way. You're not able to truly be yourself. You have to put on a facade, even for yourself. When I'm sitting in a room or I'm getting interviewed for a job or a potential position, I still have to put on something I'm not. I have to be somebody. I'm not proper, and as my friend says it, I don't want to be good niggered all the time. You know what I'm saying? So
wait a minute, hold on. So you and your friend was having a conversation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You and your friend was having a conversation.
Yes, sir.
And I've never heard this term, and this is a term that is that I've never heard before. Good niggered. And on the Endangered series, I wanna. Everything is live and uncut. So at the end of the day, we want to promote truth of people's heart and where they are. So tell me, how was this term "good niggered"? What initiated this conversation, or how did you even derive? Did he say it to you, or did you say it to him?
No, it was she. It was my good friend Emery. She graduated this year. But basically, we were talking, and I asked her, because I've been doing my own form of, I guess you say, therapy of letting people my age vent to me, tell me what they're going through, and me using my knowledge, as a 19-year-old, teenager, what can I say and what can I do to be able to have a listening ear? But she tells me, because she is a debater, she's in youth and government, and even then there's forms of racism. She explains to me that when you're presenting, the blacks sit on one side and the whites sit on the other. So even in the school systems, there's form of racism. But she goes in, she says, I'm not going to allow myself to conform. And what she explains is because she gets a lot of terms when she can articulate herself, as she says, or she can really talk well. They'll say, oh, you're very smart, you're very intelligent and everything. And so they're using that to undermine her in a sense. That's how she feels, which is very true, because just because I can use different words or I can articulate myself or I can change my vernacular, that doesn't make me, prior to me doing that, that doesn't make me unintelligent, I'm sorry. So that's where she gets it from. And you have to walk in a certain way to even be acknowledged in that setting when you're debating or you're in youth and government. So that's where the term came from in her sense. But I feel like that's present today. You told me when we had a discussion about tattoos, and I liked them, right? You said, son, I understand that that's your form of expression. You can do that, but you will have an extra target on your back simply because you know you're inked up. And you told me that whites can do that, but you cannot. So even then, you were speaking the truth. You were speaking the truth, right? Because in that sense, we could be doing the exact same thing. My Aunt Amia, she showed me a video of this man ripping off a taser at the cop, running around. And in the video, a person said if he was black, he would have been shot already. So then we're not able to have the same, you get what I'm saying, the same privileges, if that makes sense.
There is and we mentioned this last week, and if you can go back and take some time and watch the Endangered series, chapter 2, you will see where we talked about a bias that occurs in society. It doesn't necessarily mean that we can't have the rights of others, but we have a weight, or we have a responsibility, and even we have to have a consciousness of what we can and what we can't do. It doesn't mean that our Caucasian brothers and sisters can't do the same things that we do, but we have to have a different mindset of what we do. As I was expressing to my son, there's nothing wrong with you wanting to go out and get a tattoo or what have you. That's fine. For one group, that would be, that's just okay. But we have to fight battles that others may not, or they don't realize, or people don't realize, that are not of Afro-American descent, that we have to fight and consider that others don't. It may sound foreign, but if you talk to any Afro-American individual, they will tell you truth. Listen, these are things I was sharing with my son just last year, a year before. He and I was going through one of our heated debates, so to speak. Let's just call them then, an argument. And I was telling him, I said, listen, I need for you to hush, okay? I need you to listen. And he continued to talk. And I said, listen, I need for you to tone that down, hush. You know, being a father, son, it's not like we singing Kumbaya all the time. And so at this, I don't even remember the situation, but I said, I need for you to stop talking and listen to me. And the reason why I'm teaching you to make sure that you are listening to the authority that I am giving you and being obedient to that is because I can show you love at home when you are disobedient. But when you're out there in the streets and a police officer or someone of authority pulls you over and they tell you to stop talking, if you continue to talk, guess what? Your face is going to be in the cement. I'm saving your life from within. As a father, as Afro-American men, we have a mandate. We have to go before and think about, there are things that our Afro-American sons and daughters are going to encounter that if we don't stop and pause and prepare them right now, they're going to suffer the consequences. Because we can massage if we want to at home, but they're going to catch hell out in the streets. So we have to make sure that we do our due diligence as fathers and even as mothers. You mentioned treachery. I haven't heard the word good niggered, but that's interesting. The last question I would say I would ask you, Christopher, is in your conversations with your fellow peers, the ones that you talk to on a day-to-day basis, what is their sentiments or what is their mindset when they are processing things? Because I want to tell you, I'm proud of you, because to hear that you're being not only an advocate, but lending your ear to someone else's pain, I believe that God is pleased with that. And it can be a lesson that instead of us sharing our pain and hurt, I pray that we're also being a listening ear, that someone can share their pain. We ought to bear the burdens of our brothers and sisters. So you listening to them and hearing them, letting them process what they're going through, that's great. But what are some of the things that you have heard or some of the things that you hear consistently by your peers?
So the majority, so it's really split in half. The majority of my peers, I'll use for example my best friend, my brother Danny. His take on it is, I need time to process this. I want to hear something positive, right? I don't want to look on my Instagram or my Snapchat or my Facebook even and see George Floyd, death, destruction. I don't want to see that all of the time, right? Whereas on the other hand, as I mentioned my friend Emrys before, she is, I believe we're all angry and upset, but she has taken her feelings and put it in, okay, I'm gonna start educating people and everything like that, but I'm gonna do it in my opinion, I don't really agree with her methods, but it's her method, so I respect it, right? So you have some people that are very angry, and you have some people that are they're very hurt right now. They need time to process what's going on. And it is a clear divide, because in doing so, a lot of people, they want to use the term that it's okay because we're venting out our frustrations. We're doing what needs to be done because all of these methods haven't worked. But I was telling my friend Emrys, I said, well, I remember my grandfather telling me stories about the civil rights movement at different times and riots, but we're still going through this today. And that happened, in the 1960s, so like 40 years ago? 40 years ago? Yes, more than that, right? And so we need to have a healthy balance. And it is okay for you to be angry, but do not use your anger as a weapon. And what I mean by that is be able to articulate yourself when you are angry, because they already look at us as animals anyway, if I want to be honest. The people who have had this racist mentality that have been raised on it, because it is not born. Not everybody is racist when you just come out the womb. That is something that has been taught. So in order for you to convey something to somebody who already is going to look at you as a threat or as a minority or as somebody who doesn't have any value, you need to be able to articulate your anger and be able to use it to your advantage. Because when we keep on burning these buildings, flipping cars over, destruction of property, that is only going to advance or prove their point that we don't know how to convey ourselves, right? But we cannot also shelter ourselves and hide away from this topic, because if we do, we will face more destruction, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. In fact, I like the point that you made that some people will view Afro-Americans as savages or someone that is not well equipped to articulate or even to express a thought. I work with a gentleman that is on the call, and I want to say this: not all people that are not of an Afro-American descent is racist.
Yes.
Not all of them. I see Garrett Eppers on our feed. Garrett, thank you. Garrett is one of my colleagues that I work with. Not an Afro-American, but what I do is I love how we are able to work through problems. I respect his expertise. He respects mine. I believe that what you give is what you receive. Garrett has always, as a Caucasian man, has always been able to talk with me and us converse. I know there's been some problems that I've dealt with at work and trying to sort out. He's been one of the first advocates to help and assist.
Yeah.
So I believe that there's so many people, as you stated, that is dealing with this cancerous virus of racism, that ultimately they were taught that.
Yes.
It wasn't, they weren't born with it. They were taught this ailment. You see children playing on playgrounds, and ultimately you see them loving on one another. Caucasian babies playing with Afro-American babies, and they're hugging. And I echo your sentiments. This is something that is ultimately taught. Now, before I finish today, I want to, of course, go back to Father's Day. And I want us to look at briefly a father in Mark chapter 9. In Mark chapter 9, there's a father that is dealing with a son that is possessed. He has a deaf spirit. And in Mark chapter 9, in verse 16, the Bible says he asked the scribes, "What question ye with them?" In other words, why are you questioning the disciples? Why are you questioning my followers, the men that are walking with me? Now let me set the tone here. Jesus had just come down from the Mount of Transfiguration. Ultimately, Peter asked him, shall they build some monuments there? But not only that, when Jesus comes down, the crowd throngs him, they rush him. And one man in particular, being a father, the Bible says, one of the multitude answered and said, "Master, I have brought unto thee my son, which hath a dumb spirit. And wheresoever he taketh him, he teareth him and foameth him, and he gnasheth with teeth, and he pineth away. And I spake to thy disciples that thou should cast him out, and they could not." The man basically says, as a father, it was my responsibility, and this is one of the things that we can't shy away from, to seek help. As men, many times as fathers, we try to be strong. We try to be fortified and have all the answers. And what I love about this man is he identifies that there's some deficiencies in me that I cannot help my child, so I'm going to holler help. He seeks help, and I believe that that is the last word that I want to leave with most fathers here today. There is nothing wrong for you to holler help, to scream out help. He says, I brought my child to your disciples, and they could not heal him. Notice here, it goes on to say, Jesus answered him, saying, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? He says, bring him to me. And they brought him unto him, and when he saw him, straightway the spirit turned him. And he fell on the ground and wallowed foaming. And so at this point, the man has his son brought to Jesus, or Jesus has them bring the child. Jesus looks at the man. He asks him a profound question. He says, how long? How long has it been since this came unto him? He says, how long has he been dealing with this problem? And the father says, of a child. He says, since he was a little one. That's interesting that the father has been dealing with this problem for so long that he says he's been dealing with it from a child. That has to be heart-wrenching, to feel helpless. To feel helpless. Then he goes on to say, as oftentimes he had cast him into the fire and into the waters to destroy him. This enemy is trying to destroy my child. He's throwing him in the water. He's throwing him in the fire. This deaf spirit is trying to kill him. And I believe this virus, this thing called racism, hate, it is trying to kill. It is trying to kill the next generation and even the generation today. The man goes on to say, but if thou can do anything, have compassion on us. He says, help us. The man looks at Jesus and says, listen, if you can do anything, have compassion on us. Have compassion on us. I believe that is a cry that all men, you don't have to be strong. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to know who to holler to. The man, he seeks out Jesus and he says, if you can do anything. Now Jesus responds. Jesus responds by saying, if thou canst believe, if you can believe, all things are possible to him that believe. He says, I know you want me to do my part. But if you can do your part, all things are possible. I know you want me to have compassion. I know you want me to help. But if you can just have faith, all things are possible. See, we're looking at this problem that is in our society that all humanity is dealing with and up in arms with. If we can just believe, have faith of a grain of a mustard seed, we could speak to this thing and it be cast into the sea. There's nothing impossible with God. Jesus says, I don't care how long he's been dealing with this of a child. The age of the child is not known. But one thing is for sure. He says, all things are possible to him that believe. The Father straightway, he says this. He says, he cries out. He says, I believe. But verse 24 says, the man says, I believe. But the second clause of that sentence says, he says, help mine unbelief. Help my unbelief. Help my unbelief. I believe that what this man actually does is he acknowledges that there's some deficiencies in him. As a father, we have to acknowledge that, yes, that you can be viewed as Superman, but understand Clark Kent is there as well. There's some things that you can't do. There's some things that you have to be taught to do, even as a father. There's things that my son and I, we've encountered. We butt head at things. And I've had to learn. I've had to seek God's face to say, God, teach me. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging when you're wrong. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that you need some help in how to live as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as a son. There's nothing wrong with that. This man says, I believe, but help my unbelief. What he's saying is that I acknowledge, I'm asking for help because I acknowledge there's an absence of strength in this area. There's an absence of strength, even though his strength is made perfect in our weakness. We have to be willing to ask that God will equip us, because what is happening in today's society is, what are we doing? We're simply adjusting. We're simply adjusting. We're not making change. We're hibernating in this system. We're hibernating. And when you're hibernating, all you're doing is saying, I'll weather through the storm. Hibernation, when you look at animals, they hibernate in the winter. So when the winter has passed, they awake from their hibernation. And may I suggest to you that society today, we're simply hibernating. We're not changing. When we hibernate, we adjust so we can conform to the system and the society that we're living in now. Don't hibernate. Make change. Promote progress. Promote progress and change. Because if we do that, if we are instruments of change, holding our peers accountable, I believe the world, our country, our cities, our states will be better. We have to do that. Again, I want to say thank you for tuning in to the Endangered series, chapter 3. We're going to come back next week and we're going to continue to talk. Prayerfully, we will continue to equip individuals in how to walk through this season that we're going through. I believe that it is our mandate here, my mandate, your mandate, to promote progress and change. Because if we don't, we will continue to be hunted by the past and present problems of today. May God bless you. May God keep you, is our prayer. And again, happy Father's Day to every father out there. God bless you. I'll see you next week. Same time, same place, here on the Endangered series. God bless you. God keep you.